Hey guys, I want to welcome you to my first actual video. You'll notice that I already posted one video. It's just kind of a representation and also an example of a bad day for me right now. You could see I was in bed, feeling really bad, feeling really depressed, kind of ruminating on some really dark thoughts. That tends to be me whenever I have a bad day. And you're probably wondering, a bad day of what? What's going on? Who are you? What's wrong with you? Why are you making videos? And I'll just introduce myself as Battery Man for now. That's what you can call me if you're watching these videos. And if you're not watching these videos, then you don't have to call me anything, and you don't have to worry about it. But maybe you're watching this in January of 2015 when it's being made. Maybe you're watching this a year from then, 2 years from then, 5 years from then, whatever it may be. Why I want to make these videos is to support people who are going through the same thing, and also to try to support myself as I go through this. I have recently been diagnosed with bipolar disorder 2. For me, bipolar means primarily depression, almost 90%, 95% depression. Typically after I come out of a bad depression, or I'm having severe anxiety just prior to a depression, I will experience brief hypomanic episodes that typically are not very pleasant. They typically are primarily and almost entirely agitation, a feeling of uncomfortableness, a feeling that my skin is kind of raw, that I just don't feel right. To me, it's not pleasant. I know for some people hypomanic episode can be, or a manic episode definitely can be pleasant up to a certain degree. For me, these are not pleasant. Now, after I come out of a depression, sometimes I have sort of a pleasant, what I would call week or two, where I feel high energy, I feel excited to be alive again, typically because the depression's been really bad and it's lifted. I feel kind of a rebound in my mood, which sometimes can lead sometimes can lead me to what I would call a hypomanic state, where I'm making decisions that are probably not in the best interest of myself, but I'm making them because I'm seeking pleasure. I'm dating people that I normally wouldn't. I'm seeing people that I may not connect with emotionally or mentally, but physically there's a connection. And I may be doing other things that are not positive for my body, self-medicating, that kind of thing. But that's a brief description of what my hypomanic episodes are like. Now, like I said, the majority of my experiences with what they tell me now is bipolar depression, or excuse me, bipolar disorder 2 is depression. Depression for me is all-encompassing. It means that I'm in bed for 20 hours a day. It means that my skin is on fire, my head is absolutely cloudy, my body hurts, I feel physically ill, like I have aches and pains, and just generally I feel terrible. I can't seem to pull myself out of the fog that I'm in. I'm very apathetic, obviously. I feel very hopeless. I feel very much like things will never change, and that things are terrible. Now, there's only so long a person can put up with that before, obviously, their thoughts turn to suicide. And once the thoughts turn to suicide, typically, I tend to ruminate on that. I tend to think about that obsessively, constantly, research it, think of different ways to do it, and it's all an interest in avoiding pain, in avoiding what's going on, in trying to make a change with it, in thinking that it's an escape from the pain that I'm in. And when I say pain, I do have some physical pain, but I mean mental anguish. I mean feeling like you're set adrift and that's the end. Your friends and family can't understand what's wrong with you. You try to go to a doctor and you're desperately trying to fix what's going on. Things may feel like they're getting worse for a time. Just a very frustrating and scary place to be. And you're wondering, well, if you've suffered these depressions before, why don't you learn some skills so that you don't turn to suicidal thinking? It's a very good point. Unfortunately, my depressions prior to September of 2015 were nothing like this. They were bad, definitely, and they would usually involve maybe 2-3 weeks in bed, some very severe anxiety, obviously, severe feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness, lots of sleeping or trying to at least. But then there was the episode that started in September of 2015. So the depression that I started at the end of last year was a culmination of kind of a series of different events. Firstly, I lost a job in August of last year, 2015, due to some severe anxiety that I was having. In retrospect, I look at it and I realize that this was probably the beginning, or at least the start of signs showing that something was wrong. That I was kind of coming to a head with something, that the anxiety and the agitation that I was having were not of the typical severity for me, meaning that I was having a lot of what they call psychomotor agitation, where you get breathing tics, facial tics, just kind of an irritability and a kind of a skin crawling, crappy feeling. That's the best way I can describe it. And so I did my best to deal with that for a period of time. And unfortunately, the job that I was in was causing me to have worse anxiety. And when I have really bad anxiety, I tend to make poor decisions. I actually left the job myself. I wasn't fired. I wasn't asked to leave, anything like that. But kind of the consequence of the bad decision is the same. That I'm out of work. I feel even worse about myself. I still can't solve the problem with anxiety. I still can't feel like a normal, productive person. And so, obviously, after that happened, I went to my general practitioner, my doctor. Now, I did so because I was feeling strong anxiety. I want to see if there's a different medication that I could possibly use. And B, because I wasn't sleeping. And that was kind of becoming the central issue to what was going on. I wake up extremely tired. I'm nervous about being able to perform at my job because I'm extremely tired. I feel more irritable because I'm extremely tired. I literally have some of the same sensations that I've had during this agitated depression that I was, those same sensations that had started when I had the job. And looking back, I realized that it's the culmination of not sleeping. It's the culmination of previous anxiety problems. And it was sort of the impending episode that was coming in terms of me being diagnosed with bipolar 2. I look at it now and I realize I was entering, I guess, what you would call an agitated depression. So I go to my general practitioner. I get prescribed an increase in my antidepressant, which was Celexa. And I also am prescribed at that time, early September, I'm prescribed Ambien. I won't speak to the experience of other people with Ambien or citalopram, Celexa. I was on citalopram for quite a while. I don't think it's a bad medication. It just wasn't doing much for my anxiety. The Ambien, of course, was to help me sleep. It's a sleep aid. There are some things now that I know about it that I didn't particularly know about it when I started it. I was on it every night for a month, from basically the full length of September, including my birthday. It has some side effects, some very sedating, hypnotic kind of side effects. I began to realize at the end of September that I really didn't remember the month. The month was kind of a blur. That I wasn't having memory development, that I was slowly beginning to sink into a depression, that I began to ruminate on suicide. And this was around the end of the month, about the third week of September. I began to realize I feel like hell. I'm feeling terrible. Okay, I'm able to sleep at night, but something else is going on. Something is building up. And so that was September of 2015. I wake up essentially my last night of taking Ambien, like early October, literally like the first, second, third of October. And I wake up and I have a strong desire to commit suicide. And so at that point, I went downstairs. I talked to my dad. I'm currently living with my dad. And began to tell him what was going on. That was the start, essentially, of what I would call this episode. For lack of a better term, for lack of something more accurate, mental health breakdown. Like a full-fledged, I've gone mad, I can't control my depression or anxiety breakdown. I think for some people it's called a nervous breakdown. I don't know if that's the same thing. For me, I describe it as a mental health breakdown. Something fully encompassing and just a crash in my mental health. That is what I have been dealing with since late September, early October of 2015. It is currently January 18th of 2016. And so, as you can imagine, things have gotten pretty old. And I figure next time I make a video, we'll talk about what happened after that initial breakdown, that initial realization that something really bad was coming, that was happening. And we'll take it from late September, early October, and I'll explain what happened next. Things got pretty rough. I think, and I hope, that my clarity and even my ability to make a video is a sign that things are getting better, albeit slowly. But anyway, we'll pick it up next time. I'll make another video. We'll talk about what happened next and what's going on right now. So thank you very much for watching, listening. If you want to post any comments, feel free. And if nobody's watching, then, so be it. And eventually, if you are watching and it's years later, keep fighting, because I am. And there have been times when I didn't want to, but I know that I can, and I need to, and I have to. So, I'll see you guys.